Okay, so there's been a lot that's been happening in the club. The Camp Nou, got. It worries me. It really bothers me when I see the pictures of it being completely taken down. So here's looking to a new stadium in a few years, hopefully. But let's switch back into what everybody's talking about, and that's probably transfers, right? We've had a tough window, financial restrictions, and so on. Let's start with the ones that have come in. So Inigo came in. We got Gundogan, and there was the proverbial signing of Vitor Roque. We don't really know whether he will join this year or in January or next year, but exciting signings for sure. Let's start with what your take is on these three, and I'll share what I have been thinking and then hear your point of view on that.
Sure.
But let's start with Gundogan.
Gundogan. Well, I think that's pretty straightforward. He's someone that comes in on as a free signing, is someone who we know has a certain quality, and that quality is immense. There's no two things about that. It's just the way it is. Gundogan is someone whose profile fits, and is someone who, as a player in a vacuum, is someone who can raise the ceiling of Barcelona. He's someone who can actually, he improves the floor as well as the ceiling. That's the interesting thing about Gundogan. He's someone whose profile is so fitting and so good and so broad, even, that at the same time he improves what you have on the floor, but he also pushes the team forward, gives it something that they don't necessarily have. So in my mind, this signing is just excellent business. I wish it would have come earlier in his career and also in our trajectory, but at the same time, better late than never in Gundogan's case. So I feel this is a signing that's a proper win, despite his age, despite the team that he joins, because this team is far from ready to be among the best yet. But I see it as a big win.
Here's the thing, I was thinking about it, players transfer, and some players, they do phenomenally well in a particular setup, right? And then they transfer, and then they come in, and then they're suddenly not performing that well. Like, look at Sadio Mane. Amazing in Liverpool, went to Bayern, didn't really click. And there are so many of them, right? So in Pep's system, Gundogan playing the way he does, right? Coming back into David's system, where I don't really know whether we've really got a very identifiable system yet, right? We've got a box midfield that sometimes goes in. We played 4-3-3 sometimes. We've gone through the flanks and then crossed in sometimes. And we're hearing that this year probably Xavi wants to try 3-4-3, right? Now, given all our current midfield scenario, like we have Pedri, we have Gavi, we have Gundogan, we have Frank de Jong, we have Frank Kessié. At least these five are definitely there. Where do you feel it come in the different formations, and does it really help in solving what I felt the problem last year was about in the final third? Like, did Lewandowski get enough service? Did he have someone to play off against? And given our injuries, right? So let's assume Dembele is off for another few months, or Pedri is off for another few months. Where do you feel that it signs in, and does it really make Barca better? Forget the fact that he was really good for, let's say, City. Different teams, different coaches, different fundamentals. How do you feel about that?
I do think that he improves Barca. I feel he improves a very thin area of Barca, which is, as you mentioned, the final third thing, where if you have Lewandowski, who's obviously a great player and he will score goals, but when he dips, and he will start dipping even more, because let's face it, he's getting older, and we've seen the signs even last season that he will start to slow down. I think Gundogan gives you that box invader type of profile if you play up high, or if you play him next to Pedri in that final third roamer role. I feel like that way we can get the best out of him. But if he's forced to go deep and be alongside Frenkie de Jong, for example, he can do it, don't get me wrong, because he is a very versatile profile. He can do a number 6 as well. But you lose that bit of aggression that he has. You lose that bit of an edge that he brings in the final third, which I feel would be a shame if he was deployed deeper. So as long as we can keep Gundogan up and high, nice and close to the box, make him that presence that can kind of invade the space, attack space, and also link up with the strikers. I feel like we can get goals from him, directly from him, but also as someone who can be in service of Lewandowski or whoever it is on that left wing. Let's say it's Ansu Fati, for example. I feel like that way you get the best out of him. And in that scenario, I feel that you really, really get a good player. I mean, you get a good player overall, either way. But in this scenario, if he's high up, if he's attacking space, if he's close to the box, that's where you want Gundogan to be.
So in let's say proverbial, let's hypothetically, let's talk about, okay, it's a box midfield that's playing, or let's talk about 4-3-3 or 3-4-3. In all of this, who do you think is the starting set? And let's consider the rumors for a while. Let's consider Oriol Romeou is coming in, right? So now we got a bunch of people out there, right? And we got to play across different kind of blocks, like the mid block or the low block, or even fast counter attacking teams. So where do you feel it fits in? Like, does he float between the topmost midfielder and between Lewandowski playing off his shoulder, or like how do you feel that coming in?
I feel like Frenkie de Jong and Oriol Romeou will be at the base of midfield. Frenkie on the left side, Oriol on the right side, and then you have Pedri and Gundogan as the eights in the box midfield. I feel like that's the way to go. You could have Gundogan next to Frenkie de Jong in case Oriol Romeou doesn't join. But let's say, for the case of this argument, that he does join, which in my opinion would be the right thing to do. In that case, you have Gundogan on the right side, let's say, and Pedri on the left. Now, this is also tricky because Gundogan, in an ideal world, you have Gundogan on the left side. Yep. But since Pedri's preferred side is the left as well, I think we don't sacrifice that for Gundogan. I think we put Gundogan on the right side and then have Pedri on the left. So in that role, as the right side number 8, and Oriol Romeou behind him, Gundogan can have that sort of hybrid role, more box to box, because Oriol Romeou is not your flashy progressor. He will be very horizontal. He will be very tidy and very secure, but not exactly the flashiest or the most sensational player on the ball. So you could have an extra progression pathway of Gundogan on that right side covering for Romeou. But also having more of a presence up high, up front, because you have Frenkie de Jong next to Romeou, who will compensate for Romeu's lack of progression. So that's how I see it in a box midfield.
And a 3-4-3?
3-4-3, depends. 3-4-3, so we have 3 center backs. Depends on where the width comes from, because you could potentially push one of the midfielders out wide. So let's say if it's a box, again, 3-4-3, well, the same thing happens. I think the same thing happens, but you need width from the wingers. So on the right, you have Dembele. On the left, you know what? It depends on the left winger a lot. It depends on the left winger a lot. Do we have someone like Ansu Fati, or does Xavi want to have a box formed out of the winger, again, inverting? I think the 3-4-3 doesn't change much in terms of the midfield if we have these 4 starting midfielders, which I feel on the face of it is for now the most optimal approach, because Oriol Romeou is a good number 6, but he's not the number 6, the lone number 6 that Barcelona need. So you need someone like Frenkie de Jong next to him. So that also means that you need the box, or at least you need a double pivot, even if you don't have the box.
So the question is, like last year, and you may disagree, but last year what I consistently felt that Xavi's gameplay is basically to create an overload on one of the flanks and then switch the play and then bring it back in. And we saw it consistently. And what I missed at times was, Barca's ability, or in the yesteryears, of actually building through the middle and then playing in short bursts and then going through. That was, I found it missing last season for many of the games. But if you think about this year with this kind of a profile coming in, do you feel that we are continuing to go that, overload route? And if that's the case, then how does Gundogan fit in that? Or do you think Xavi will try to break from that mold and still try building through the middle a little bit, just like Barca was used to do?
I think we will, because last season's box was created with a winger inverting into the midfield, which means that you can lose some sort of presence out wide as well. And you have 4 midfielders that gives you more control on paper, but then you lose something on the flanks as well. You lose attacking power out wide. Now, depends on that left winger, because if you have a left winger who's not really very combinatory in nature, so let's say it's someone like Fati, or even, as I argued, Roque could be, in that scenario where you have someone who purely attacks space, someone who is purely an attacking focused, very goal scoring threat, but not much of a combinatory profile, you play much faster football. But if you have interiors who can combine a bit more, interiors, so players who come in and in the middle of the pitch have this technical quality to keep the ball, that's a different story. If you have players who just attack space, who are penetrators, you play much faster football. So it's a box like akin to Liverpool's box. They play quick passes into the feet of those inverted players. They turn quickly, they attack space. That's
So
how
you think
work.
we're still going to have some inverted fullbacks kind of a game with?
I think we will have inverted fullbacks. On the right, yes. On the left, no. So on the right side, Koundé is still our preferred right back, right? So if that happens, Koundé is obviously not an overlapping presence. He's not the width provider. Yeah. He's someone who you want to be deeper, someone who wants to be closer to the center, and then playing diagonals, playing passes into whoever it is that's our runner on the other side of the pitch. So in that scenario, it's an inverted right back, but on the left, it's an overlapping left back with someone like Ansu Fati, for example, or Ferran Torres, who can be width holders, but who inevitably crash the box and go more centrally. So I feel that's the setup that we're going to see. But with Gundogan and Pedri above Oriol and Frenkie, I think Barca have great quality to keep the ball more and to pin the opposition back a bit more. Now, the thing is, Gundogan, with his movement, he can pin the opposition's backline, and that can give more space for Barca to operate between the lines. So that gives more space to Pedri to kind of roam and receive the ball in different areas within the final third. And then you have Frenkie and Oriol, whose task will mainly be to transport the ball from the back line to that area where we have the danger man positioned. And that's also because in the back line, you have Araujo, who we know that will struggle with that kind of thing. But when you have someone like Koundé inverting, at the same time, that helps the progression from the first line of the pitch of our squad, and kind of compensates for that.
Correct. And we have often talked about this, like, Frenkie by nature is more of a ball carrier. He likes to run with the ball. You give him the ball and he loves running. Does this help Frenkie play more of his natural game?
Oriol Romeou does. Gundogan can as well. If Gundogan plays next to Frenkie, it's not ideal because you have two players who have similar tendencies. They have a similar mindset. Yeah. It's far more vertical than it is horizontal. But if you put Frenkie next to Oriol Romeou, for example, that's why I keep saying Oriol Romeou is not a world class, it's not a world beater in any sense. But he's very tidy and he's very reliable, and he has the profile that Barca need. It's more about the profile than the name here in this case. That's why I keep saying that Barca, it's funny that Barca are doing some of their best business now they're broke, because it forces you to actually, exactly. You can't just go out there and buy names. No, you actually buy profile. You buy players. You see them as utility pieces.
Yeah,
exactly. So that's why I feel Oriol Romeou will liberate the best indicator of Oriol Romeu's success is how well the players around him operate, how free they are, how you get the best out of them. And I think you will get the best out of Frenkie if you have Oriol Romeou next to him, because Frenkie can go anywhere he wants. He can attack space, and he will have Romeou, let's say, in a Busquets role, although it's not a Busquets role, we know that, but in that horizontal role behind Frenkie. So I feel, yes.
Tidying up. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So your take, we've got a bunch of, competitions to play through. La Liga, then there's Copa del Rey, then there is Champions League. What's your starting midfield for each of these?
Well, in a box midfield, it just picks itself. I think it's if Oriol, Jones, and Frenkie, Oriol, Pedri, Gundogan. That's the box midfield that I would go for. I feel like at this point in time, Gavi is not in there, and I also think that Gavi as a left winger is also a thing of the past. I think it is in general. Even if we have the box midfield, even if we don't have the box midfield, I don't think we'll see Gavi left wing. So he's a purely rotational piece at this point in time. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm not saying this is the end of Gavi, But at this point in time, I feel like Gavi is the rotational piece in our midfield.
And how does that
And if
affect things?
how does it affect things? I think it's good in a sense that you don't put as much pressure on such a young player. You don't force him to play week in, week out. You actually, and you also give him some sort of a incentive, let's put it that way, to keep growing and keep fighting for his spots.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a good thing if you look at it that way. Of course, it's a shame that we won't see as much Gavi because he is a great player, but I feel it's for the best at this point in time.
All right, so that's just starting. Now let's assume what's happening for all of these seasons, and Pedri goes injured. Of course, we don't want that to happen, but generally that's what we've seen. If that in that scenario, what's Xavi's best lineup? Give him the rest that he needs.
Well, that's where Gavi comes in, because remember, Gavi used to be a right midfielder, but then because Pedri would occupy the left, but then Xavi swapped them over. Why? Because both of them were more comfortable on the left, but Pedri is more adaptable, so he could play on the right and still be effective, whereas Gavi couldn't. But Gavi as the left midfielder, left 8 in the box, is similar to Pedri because he's not as creative, he's not as good overall, I don't think. But that is where he thrives. And that's why Xavi had him as the left winger, pseudo left winger, who would invert back. This would be more of the same, although with a starting position in the box already. So he wouldn't have to be the width holder in any scenario in that situation. So I think that you lose quality. Obviously, you lose quality with Pedri gone, but you have someone like Gavi who on the left is still a very, very effective player, I feel, in my mind. So
it'll be interesting to see, especially, the kids are so young. And the market's open, and it'll be interesting to see how Xavi manages things this year, especially with these profiles coming in. Okay, we talked about Gundogan. Let's move on to defense. Inigo Martinez, right? We all had our horror moments and our heart in our, mouth moments. Marcos Alonso and Koundé not being very happy playing right back, and Araujo was injured quite a bit last season, if I'm not mistaken. He didn't play, a lot of games. And defense has suffered. Like if you look at the Europa exit from Manchester United, I think there were certain games where you could feel that the defense was not up to the scratch. And in the Champions League, it was like it was like chalk and cheese. Like we conceded like 12 goals in the Champions League, right, last year, even with that defense. And yes, injuries happened, but injuries can happen this time as well, right? So where do you think Inigo slots in, given his history of injuries, and but still he brings a particular style of play. He brings a particular width and flair of play. First of all, how do you think about the overall profile, as you said? And then where do you feel he fits in? Is he a rotation? Is he a starter? And how does Koundé's situation, evolve with his coming in? Christensen and Araujo, I'm expecting, are pretty much undisputed at this moment in the Barca defense. But between Inigo and Koundé, how do you think things are going to pan out? Well,
they play on different sides of the pitch because Inigo is a left footer, right? And having a left footer in the team, in modern football, it's just become such a commodity to have, a luxury to have a left-footed center back or a left back, either way, or left center back, depends on how you play. I think it's such a luxury to have, and Barca have missed someone like that. I mean, Longley he was someone that I personally liked. He had his moments.
Yeah.
He had his moments where he would just have you scratch your head at times, but he was a solid backup, let's say backup squad player. And Inigo is a much improved Longley in terms of he's more reliable, he has more experience, his mental profile is also much better in a sense that he's a leader, an experienced leader, a veteran, as someone who has been through the ringer a couple of times, and he knows how to ride the pressure, both mental and physical. And he's someone whose profile is, as I said, it's a luxury to have. and that's in spite of his age. I know that he comes in as a rotational player. Let's just put that out there. He's not going to be a starter. I don't think he's going to be a starter because he is not good enough, let's say, to displace Araujo or Koundé or even Christ. Well, now the Christensen situation is very interesting because we didn't really expect him to have such a prominent impact on the team. But
he probably was the signing of the season last year. Like,
yeah,
insane
exactly.
season.
Yeah, I agree. And in that form, Christensen is he's also crucial. So I feel like Inigo is still a rotational option in this situation on the left side of the pitch. So either as a left center back on a bit wider in the back three, or a just center back in a back tandem.
In a 3-4-3, don't you think that based on the profile and the kind of playing, Inigo Christensen and Araujo seem more of a fit to the system than
Inigo Christensen. Right, Inigo Christensen and Araujo. Yeah, it could be. You could also have Inigo, Araujo, and Koundé in the back three. I guess that would work as well. But then that requires you to have someone providing the width on the wings without you having fullbacks on either side, right? Unless you play Balde in that sort of left midfielder role. Yeah. So that's an option. I feel like Inigo on the left in a back three would be a good option, because he is someone who can defend and attack in a sense.
He's a line breaker. If you look at his stats, he's basically he's quite active. He gets up the pitch and does break lines with his passing. And given the kind of people we are thinking about in midfield, so let's say a Gundogan, or let's say even a Frankie, or our flanks like a Balde, it can be pretty interesting to have a person like that just going up and down the pitch and breaking lines, because that has been a challenge for us at times, especially during mid blocks. Like, you remember, you think about the La Liga mid block sides or the low block sides, they'll just suffocate the width out of you. They'll suffocate the lanes out of you, right? So you need people like that. So I was wondering, like, if in a platform, with somebody like him coming into the system, do you think Barca's versatility or efficacy improve in building up from the back? Like, we still build up from the back, but let's be honest, it's nothing like it used to be, right? That fluency is just not there. And the connection between the defense and the midfield into the offense, right, is like, it's there, but it's not there. Like, not to the way Barca fans have been used, or we were just pampered to, we were just pampered that we got it that good. So that was my thinking. Like, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think it does. It does improve on how well you build up, because you have a left footer in the back line on the left side. Now, what does that do to your build-up? It's not a necessity. So it's not like you have to have a left center back on the left to be good at build-up. No, but it does open up different angles. When I say different angles, is a left footer. Let's say you're shuffling the ball from right to left. If you have a right-footed center back receiving the ball on the left side of the pitch, what he has to do, he has to receive and shuttle the ball across his body to play with his right foot, unless he's proficient with the left as well. What a left footer can do, he can immediately, so the ball goes across his body, he opens his body,
and that's it.
Opens his body, and he uses his left foot to have the angles of the whole pitch open, basically, and he can combine with whoever is in front of him, the midfielders, the fullback, dropping forwards, doesn't really matter. Whoever is there, he opens his body, and he can more efficiently and more quickly shuffle the ball forward. So in that sense, it's more optimal to have a left center back. It's not an outright necessity to have one, but it does kind of raise that floor a little bit. It gives you a bit more of an optimal approach, a bit more efficiency in your build-up. So I'd say that it does improve. And then you add in the fact that Inigo is actually very proficient on the ball, as you said. He can break lines, he can connect well, he can link up well. And I think that adds something that's been kind of missing on the left side of the pitch. Of course, that's why you have Frankie on the left side, because he can always drop.
That's another one.
And then,
because
Yeah,
Frankie's played that role so many times. If you think about it, Xavi's used him and Koeman's used him in defense, right? So he's got the same, stylistic. Of course, they're not the same players, but they have the same habit of, just moving forward and trying to break the line, right? So, all right. So we touched about both of them. Now the big one, Vitor Roque, right? Statement signing. You wrote probably a novel on him, and that was I loved it. It was insane. So thanks for putting it out there.
No worries.
And a lot of people, from what I saw in the comments, and they enjoyed the piece. They enjoyed the details of the piece. But let's boil it down a little bit. Like whether he comes in now or next year, depending on how things are. Barca's goal scoring has been a problem, whether we believe it or not. That's the truth, right? And even now, I think, on paper, while it may sound great with, Dembele and Lewandowski, Lewandowski was off for like quite a big part of the campaign last year. One. Second, Dembele is good when he's good, but often he's not good. Right?
I know.
And you don't know when injury is going to come in and all of that stuff, right? So Partey again, if tremendous potential, we all know it, but has been missing that something. Not really sure that we are going to see that something this season, but we can always hope and pray because we want him to be successful for sure. But I still feel it's a very incomplete forward line. You can't really depend on this forward. You don't really know what to expect out of this forward line. Like Lewandowski, has a good day. Yeah, we score a few goals. It doesn't. Don't know. Dembele's game is good. He crosses a few, gives a few assists. We're good, but can't really depend on it and so on. I still feel that it's a very weak and wobbly kind of an offensive line. Though on paper it sounds very good. Right. Someone like Roque coming in, first of all, his adaptation, right? Because he's so young, and the shift will be massive from where he is to Barca, right? Because people will figure him out. The defenses will figure him out. They will immediately work out plans to manage and just and so on. That's one thing. The second is obviously his link-up play or his ability to play with the likes of Dembele or Balde and Lewandowski himself, right? Or Fati, whichever combination you are thinking about and so on. And then his ability to run off the shoulder, like Suarez. I love Suarez's running off the shoulder game. Like he could run off the shoulder of anybody, like literally, right? And his ability to do that with the likes of Gundo and Frankie behind him or Pedri behind him creating. What are the challenges that you feel that he's going to face and he's got to adapt to, first of all, right? Second, where do you think he'll immediately improve Barca's offensive, just the nature and the look and feel of it, and then the efficacy of it? Because I'm just trying to look at it from both ends, because the young kid, let's not put all the expectation pressure and say, hey, it just doesn't make sense. Even Suarez needed such a long time to adapt to Barca before he started, actually scoring. So it's not an easy thing to be in, and not an easy place to be in. So how do you feel that? What are the things that you think that he will struggle in as he comes in? And then on the second side, on the other side, how do you think he immediately improves Barca's offensive line?
Well, that's good questions, because I feel like, as you said, this is a player he's very young, 18 obviously, and he's coming into Europe, playing into European football, which is as much as South American football is full of flair, and it's nice to watch. It's exciting. It's very competitive. It's very different. It's also very different from European football, let alone Barcelona, who are among the most difficult clubs to come in and immediately thrive. We've seen much more developed, much more experienced players fail despite their quality. So it's never a guarantee. He has incredible potential, incredible foundation of traits, both mental and physical, but nothing guarantees success. And that's what I've been saying as well for him. It's a big task to come into Barca and expect an 18-year-old who's playing in Europe for the first time to be the missing piece that will kind of balance it all out and suddenly improve everything that we've been missing in our forward line. So people should really dose their expectation. Yes, he is an incredible talent. He really is, but we have to give him time to get there, to become that player that we need him to be. So what will he struggle with? I feel like you've touched upon this very well with the link-up play and the just the adaptation process, because the volume of passes, of touches, of involvement will skyrocket immediately, because Roque is a very low touch, high threat, kind of efficient forward who will make runs, who will attack space, or who will carry the ball if necessary, but he will mostly be more effective high up the pitch. The higher he is, the more effective he becomes, and more efficient he becomes. So as a Barca number 9, well, if you have the build-up sorted, the number 9 doesn't necessarily have to be that involved. So there's that option, right? But as we've seen from Barca, sometimes that's very, it's not there yet. So some sort of participation for the number 9 might be required. In that sense, how will Roque adapt? That's the big question, because the volume will increase, the role will increase. He will have to be more engaged, more involved overall, but he will also be far more tightly marked, because down that middle, down the middle third, he will have players on top of him all the time. He'll have players not letting him breathe. And how well he creates that separation, how well he scans, how well he lays the ball off and then attacks space immediately in a curved run, which he can do very well. But how well he does it in this Barca system and in this La Liga environment that will suffocate him, or at least try to suffocate him, that will play a big part of his success, I feel like.
But as you scouted him quite a bit, right? And I was thinking about it, like when you went through all his stuff, like the good and the bad and the ones that he can improve on, what struck you as, I don't know, the good we have heard, what struck you as maybe 3 things that he really needs to start working on if he's got to be successful in an outfit like Barca?
Right. Okay, 3 things. Let's put it this way. Right foot bias. So Roque is, I've seen a lot of reports on Roque, and every single one said he's ambipedal, he uses both feet. That is true in the box. He can finish with both his left and his right foot. That's a great asset to have. But when he carries the ball, when he passes the ball, when he receives the ball, he uses almost exclusively his right foot. He can use his left, of course he can. All players use both their feet to a certain extent. But I feel like he still favors his right foot a lot. That is a problem in certain scenarios. Depends on where he is on the pitch. That he needs to work on, just the versatility of his touches. Second of all, he's scanning, because Roque likes to turn and live on the shoulder of the defender, as I said. He loves the half turn and go into space
and then just go. Yeah.
But if he doesn't scan properly, which sometimes I feel like he does it for a little bit, maybe once or twice, but if it's not enough, again, we come back to the La Liga systems that will suffocate him. If he doesn't scan in a highly marked scenario, he will run into traffic. He will lose the ball more often than he does. So variety of touches, scanning, and then the third thing would be, I don't know, let's see. There was something else I wanted to mention, but it slipped my mind now.
It's all right.
Of course,
the point was just, let's just thinking about, because we've seen it so many times, like Fadi himself, like, and then there are injuries and so on and so forth. These are small things, but these small things can make such a big difference between success and being fit for this team at the right moment. That's all that matters, right? They're all great players, but are they great players in this team? Right, and can they uplift the output of the whole team is the main question. That's good. Like we talked about, all 3 of them, and I'm excited to see, when he comes in and how he fits in. If he comes in Jan, obviously, he doesn't play in the Champions League for sure, because he won't be registered and so on. But it'd be good to have that time, and maybe a year extra in Brazil helps him to get a little bit more foundationally stronger and then come in next year. But then that still leaves the concern for this year, because I still feel we have quite a weak, I won't say weak, but I just can't depend on this forward line. Like if they can deliver, they can score 5 goals for sure, but you just can't be in that state of mind that yes, okay, they'll get the job done, right? It's just how this forward line is for me at this moment. Okay, we talked about the ones that have come in, and we are talking about a lot of them who may come in, right? And because it's Barca, it's everybody, right? So you have got Romeou, you've got Pablo Maffeo, You've got Bernardo Silva for the I don't know 20th time maybe. Then you've got from the other side. I mean, we've also heard about Draxler.
Fresneda.
We've heard about Florian Wirtz. We have heard about all these names. Now let's not get carried away on or Fresneda. That's being talked about quite a lot right now.
Yeah.
So I'll keep it simple, right? I'll talk between the ones that probably we have the money to go get. I don't think we have the money to get a Bernardo Silva, first of all. And even if we did get him, I don't know how he gets used in this midfield of ours without sacrificing Pedri and Frankie de Jong, which is again a big problem, right? So I'll keep that aside. If he comes, great, we'll see about it. But let's talk about the ones that we actually have, maybe have some dollars left here and there to make it happen. And that would be Fresneda and Pablo Maffeo. So let's start with those two. Pros, cons, how do you go?
I think Maffeo is more available at the moment. I think if you compare these two, it's more likely that you can get Maffeo than you can get Fresneda, but he is not someone who you buy and expect him to be your long-term option or your ceiling raising option or your will get into the elite with Maffeo as a right back type of option. Put it simply, he's a stopgap. I feel like, no disrespect to him, of course he does have his uses, but is he someone that you want long-term on the right side? I don't really think so.
Do you think it's like a season, come play a couple of seasons and you ship it out alone, or you just get sold or whatever? Is that what Pablo Maffeo is?
Yeah, I think he's someone that you have until you have someone better. That's my consensus on Maffeo, and I would have to maybe there's more to him. Maybe there is more to him, and I don't want to say much more before I actually have a detailed look. If he really becomes an option, I will have a more detailed look, and I will give you a more educational opinion. But for now, that's what I feel for him. Now Fresneda, I feel like he's slightly overrated in his current form, but then again, there's this side of the fan base that doesn't value him enough as a long-term kind of project, I feel like. So his profile in my mind is much more valuable and his ceiling is much higher. So even
is there a player we are missing, Dom, like whom you would have thought that, hey, you're talking about all these guys for the right back position because we don't have a right back, right? Is there a dream right back that we've not been linked with, right, but you felt was the best tactical fit for Barca within the few dollars that we have?
Oof, well, that's difficult. Ideal right back. Wow. I don't know who I would take at this point. I would have to think about it more. It's a very loaded question, because if the world was your oyster, who would you pick? Is that
it's
kind
like
of
that. No, the world is not our oyster. We just don't have money, right? So the world is not our oyster. Let's assume our oyster is between 10 to 15 million. That's it. That's all we have, right? So within that.
In that case, I go for Fresneda. I go for him. Honestly, I do. It's a risk. I'm not saying that he's this be-all end-all player who's going to come in and suddenly boom, he's our starting right back. No, he's not. But the upside is worth the risk, in my opinion. So
and how does he interplay with Balde? Given I was just seeing, like I've seen him play in Liga last year, a few games. Now you think about Koundé, our defense line, like completely the way it is, right? And you think about Fresneda coming in, and you think about I'm thinking we still will pursue with Serginho Dest this time around, given the reports that we have. So that scenario, then you have Balde, and then you have the complete overloading of flanks that Xavi uses, and Xavi generally overloads the flank on which Balde is, and then he switches play to a Dembele, and then the cross comes in, right? That's basically how he plays, correct? And all these players will be fitted in that part of that pitch, in that part of the zone, right? So how do you feel that is he the player who links the best among these coterie or group of players as you think about his characteristics, his style, his way of playing?
I think that he's more of a Koundé than he is a Balde, for sure. He's he can play in a back three, for example. His profile to me is more valuable than someone like Maffeo or someone like even Arnau Martinez also as well, because I feel like the fact that Fresneda I feel there's potential he doesn't really invert as such, but there is potential to invert, and there's a potential to play as a back three. So right center back in the back three, and that already makes him very valuable because Xavi wants a right back like that. I feel like he wants someone who's more Koundé than he is Balde, if that makes sense. Because Balde obviously he's not a back three kind of player. He's a player that wants space and attack that space. Just go, 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 go. Well, Fresneda it's not like he doesn't have offensive qualities. He does, but not in such a way. So I feel like he is suited for the right back role. And Koundé, interestingly enough, in my mind, is still a very, very good profile for that right back as well. It's not ideal because the player himself doesn't really see himself as a right back, but his profile kind of fits what Xavi wants from a right back. So I feel
it does actually.
Yeah, I feel like Koundé and then Fresneda. The only issue here with having those two as your right backs would be the kind of lack of versatility, because you have two similar type of players.
And
so
between one is going to be on the bench most of the time, right?
Yes.
And given our state of finances, except for squad depth and injury, right? How much do you spend on something like that if you've got a system that and Xavi's pretty, what I've felt is Xavi doesn't like really experimenting that much. Like once he's got his lineup, he's going to go with that lineup as long as they're, worth, they can just play. He's going to go with that, right? So he's not going to really tinker around. And so given with that kind of a scenario, and the fact that we don't really have any money, so where do we invest on? Like, I think, Fresneda, I think will be a little bit more expensive than Pablo Maffeo. So for given the situation, the time, the context, right, of this season, and what we already have, do you, from all that perspective, do you still feel that maybe Maffeo is a better choice for a season or two?
No, I wouldn't. If we can get Fresneda, I would get Fresneda, simply because I just put him, in my mind, he's
a better player.
A better player and a player with a much higher ceiling. So the upsides are just, they're worth the extra money that you will pay. So Maffeo is the cheapest option. Fresneda is kind of the middle option, and Arnau is the most expensive option because he is the most developed at this point in time.
Yeah.
But as you move forward, Maffeo kind of stays on this line. Arnau goes like this, and then you have Fresneda who goes like that, right? So he kind of explodes if everything goes to plan, which more often than that,
which we don't know. None of us know what will happen. We're just conjecturing at this point. All right, interesting. Good to see. It's a long transfer window, so I don't think we'll know it all until it ends in August and so on. So there's quite a distance to go. So it'll be interesting to see. Okay, we talked a lot about that. Now, before we end for today, I was very interested to know about, Xavi, right? So he came in year one, we were in a mess, and he got us from 9 to 2, and it was good. And, he did what he did. Last year, we pulled all those levers, spent about $180 million, dollars out there, got a squad, won the Liga for sure. Didn't really perform up to expectations in any of the cups, neither Europa nor Champions League. And even in the Copa del Rey, the final was like the 4-0 wasn't really great playing by any way of definition or thing. So as you think about Xavi this year, and him getting Gundogan, whom he wanted, and him getting another defender in Inigo, maybe an Oriol, and let's see who else comes in. I feel like a lot more people would have got a lot less support if it was not Xavi, to be honest, right? I love him as a player. I love him I also love the fact that he has done for the team what he has done, and we have been able to win Liga under those circumstances. But he's also been supported by Laporta. Let's be honest, right? Massively supported by Laporta. Like if Koeman was given the same 174, 80 million, we don't know what he would have done. maybe good, maybe bad, we just don't know. But he's been supported, and he's been supported even now, right? So as you think about next year or next season, what's table stakes for you?
Well, I agree with most of what you said. I think that he has been supported, but he also has delivered, as much as we tend to criticize him for, rightfully so, for the cups and even the style of play. I think that he has improved the team. He has improved the team, and we do have some sort of a sense of direction moving forward, and we do have some hope that we can actually get there eventually. So I feel like the context is very important here. The mess that he inherited, it was just,
it was for sure.
It was awful.
And I think often his hands have been forced. Like he played with what he got, right? So we can't really blame anybody for doing that. He got a bunch of players who could play only to that potential and level, and he played with that, and that all obviously affected us. But now he's had time for 2.5, almost 2.5, seasons. It will go into that, right? His time. What's the bare minimum Barca fans should expect?
I kept saying that I would rather sack Xavi on the basis of not improving the team than on the basis of not gaining silverware. And I feel like that's still the case for me. Xavi will have a much improved squad going to next season. And if Barca still don't show clear signs of progression and things, so new problems are bad, but if old problems keep persisting over time, that's the biggest problem. So if Xavi cannot improve on the old problems, fix old problems, that is a big indicator that something is wrong, or that improvement is not happening. It's just not there. So I feel like Xavi has to iron out the old problems in terms of verticality. I mean, it's not bad to be vertical. There's a world and a system and type of players that do excel in those situation structures. I feel like it's still not optimal for Barcelona. So find the optimal system. He has the platform now. He has the players. This squad is not complete. Let's not.
No, I agree. It takes another 2 seasons to actually complete. I'll give him that for sure. But somewhere you've also got to, as you said, show progress. And the progress is either in the way the team plays the game, because then you can see it. You see it, you understand it, the team's playing good. Win, loss can happen, right? That's okay. As fans, we're used to, win and loss. That's one. And the second thing is obviously, I mean, yes, nobody can guarantee a Champions League win. Nobody can guarantee any cup win, but at least a decent enough performance. Like in Inter with a 54 win percentage went on to the finals, right? That's Inter's story last year, right? And that's where you start thinking that, okay, not expecting to win, but at least maybe round of 16, maybe quarterfinal for sure, like at least get till there, right? So how do you feel, like, how do you think about that? Or do you not take that into account at all and say, okay, it doesn't really matter, they can, be in Europa again, but if the team's playing awesome, we're good.
So that's the problem now, because for most of other clubs, this would be an option, but it's not for Barcelona, because Xavi's a Barca and not as, I don't know, I don't want to mention any clubs, all right, but he's a Barca. So at Barca, you want to, you don't have the time to kind of build that project. You have to be successful now, right here and right
building
now,
the project. Like it's like
building the project.
You're flying the plane and building it at the same time.
Exactly. That's why I keep saying in the pieces as well, it's like it's equivalent of having your cake and eating it too, because that's what it is. It's simply is the reality of being a Barcelona coach. You don't, yes, you're at this glamorous big club, but you'll be also in the spotlight all the time, and you'll also have enormous, sometimes even unrealistic expectations on your shoulders, which Xavi knows this, and there won't be many excuses left. I think for Xavi, he has to deliver on both fronts, the titles and the performances. That's it. It sounds ridiculous, but he has to. That's Barcelona, and that's the reality of being a Barca coach. You just have to do both of those things to a very, very high standard, and go into his, whether you feel his second or third season, doesn't matter. He has to deliver those things. I feel like that has to happen. So
all right. So prediction time, Dom. Liga.
We can win La Liga. We have to win La Liga. I think
Not
Real
going
Madrid.
in La Liga.
Yeah.
Champions League. Where are we ending? Are we going to Europa again?
I don't. We have to get past the group stages. That's not, we can't go to Europa again. No. No disrespect to Europa League teams or the competition. It
That's
has
great,
its
actually. I
charm.
actually like European League games a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
Sometimes
Very-
because they're like, it's really good to watch. I often watch it. So the competition is really good. So no question on that. But it's about the money. It's about this, all of the other stuff that comes with.
It's not where Barca belong. Yeah, it's not where Barca belong. It's just people will see this as being arrogant or cocky, but it's not where Barca belong. That's the way I feel. So at least retain the Champions League spot, not through winning La Liga or finishing in the top spot in La Liga, no, but by going far or further in the competition. Or
where do you think we will this year? Realistically, what's the run?
We either exit in the quarterfinals, or we just manage to scrape past the group stage. Well, no, we get past the group stages for sure. And then every step after that is a bonus step, I feel like.
Okay, so you're thinking round of 16 onward, we don't know.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, something like that.
Okay, and the Copa del Rey.
Copa del Rey, it's also something that we can win. Depends on how well we perform in other areas. That's how much this will be prioritized, obviously, because it's a nice thing to have, and I feel like we should go for it if we can, if we have the depth, the energy, if the injuries serve us well, I think we can go for it. We can win that as well. It's not a priority, but we can win that as well. There you go.
Well, there we go. Okay, so that was good. And hey guys, like, this is the first time we're doing it, right? So we're not experts. We made tons of mistakes, and as we do it, we learn. But it was just, it just came to mind that, the way we talk, we should just talk with all of you, and then over time, get some of you as well on the conversation to hear your points of view and so on and so forth. So yeah, excuse all the tardiness. It's not like all professionalism. It's just two guys from two different parts of the world just trying to just, jam and just talk about the club that they love and then the game that they love. So that was it, and see you again next week. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.